All right, welcome back. We are in Canto 5 now. So Dante has woken up in a dark wood. He has he tried to ascend the mountain. He was stopped by the three beasts, the leopard, the lion, the she-wolf. And however you want to allegorically read those animals, they at least, the very least, refer back to Jeremiah 6:5. Jeremiah 5:6, where they represent God's judgment on Israel and the inevitability of their judgment because their transgressions are many and their apostasies are great. And so at the very least, that's what these beasts represent in this moment. The reason why Dante can't reach salvation, the reason why he can't reach the top of the hill, is because his sins are great. His apostasies are great. And so he cannot save himself, right? And he realizes this and is fleeing back down to where the sun is silent, full of grief and shame. And then as he does so, the shade of Vergil comes, this moment of grace, where we find out in the second canto that Mary, Lucy, Beatrice have sent Vergil to Dante in order to save him. But the way up is down, right? In order to escape the she-wolf specifically, you have to go down into hell. You have to see what sin is. You have to get a real grasp of the nature of sin, what it does to the soul, how it corrupts the soul, how it corrupts the intellect, how it corrupts the will, how it corrupts our passions, how it corrupts individuals, families, nations, empires. And only then can you have a right understanding of our condition. Right? Only then can Dante fully grasp the nature of his sin, the nature of his transgression and his apostasy, how it was that he fell off the right way, how it was that he fell asleep and was so filled with apathy that his way was lost, that he abandoned following after Christ. So this is the story of his reclamation, his redemption. This is his testimony. This is how he came back to a place of wholeness, a place of salvation, or came to a place of salvation for the first time. Even as we'll see at the top of Purgatory, there's a real phenomenal picture of regeneration and this come to Jesus moment. So that is where we're heading. Here in Canto 5, we've gone through the gates of hell. We've seen how divine power, supreme wisdom, and primal love are the creators of this place, of this state. And specifically, the power of God, the wisdom of God, and the love of God create a space where that which despises God, that which breaks his commandments, those who hate God, this is where they go. And why? It's easy to see maybe power and wisdom, but why love? Well, the love for something requires hatred of that which would destroy it, hatred of that which corrupts it, right? A love of sheep necessitates, by the same coin on the other side, is a hatred of wolves, right? If you love sheep, you hate wolves, because the wolves represent the destruction of those sheep. And so hell becomes that place where sin, corruption, transgression is punished and dealt with, and justice is meted out perfectly. So that is what divine power, divine might, supreme wisdom, primal love are representing in this triune formulation. So Dante goes through the gates. He sees the neutrals, which we've talked about. He's seen the Acheron and Charon and the virtuous, so-called virtuous pagans. And now he comes to Canto 2, or not Canto 2, Canto 5, but Circle 2, where the lustful are punished. And this is a fascinating canto. So I might just go ahead and read the whole thing all in one fell swoop and then make comment afterwards, if I can restrain myself from making comments as we go through it. So we'll see how it goes. Canto 5. So I descended from the first circle down to the next, which rounds a smaller space, where so much more pain provokes lamenting. Minos stands there, horrible and snarling. At the entrance, he weighs each transgression, passing judgment with the clutch of his tail. I say that when the evil-born soul comes before him and confesses everything, that connoisseur of each sin of each soul cinches his long tail so many times round as circle below, the circle he wishes to send each soul. Always before him stands a multitude, going each in turn to their own judgment. They confess, they hear, they are then thrown down. Okay, I'll make a brief comment on Minos. Dante uses him as this mythological creature with a long tail, and as many times, and this is straight out of the Aeneid, book 6, as many times as the tail wraps around his body, that's the level, that's the circle to which a soul is sent. And so Minos will sniff almost like he's tasting, like preparing to taste some wine. He's this connoisseur. He's judging a person and considering where they belong in hell. Circle 2, wrap 2 times around. Circle 6, wrap 6 times around. And that is how these sinners are sent to their respective circles. "O you who come to this dolorous house," said Minos to me when he saw me there, breaking off from his terrible office, "consider how you come and whom you trust. Don't be deceived by this spacious entrance." My leader replied, "Why are you shouting? Interfere not with his fated journey. This has been willed in that place where one wills what one is able to do. Ask no more." Now, it's the second time, sorry, I said I would read this straight through. We'll read most of it straight through. But that's the second time Vergil has said this, and it won't be the last. He's appealing to the authority of heaven, right? Everybody in hell is going to be really shocked and weirded out and angry that Dante gets to make this journey before he dies, while he's still alive. And so Vergil is basing Dante's right to do this on the authority that was given to him by God, through Mary, through Lucy, through Beatrice. And this journey has been willed by the one who always does what he wills, right? By God himself. Okay. Now the miserable notes did begin to make themselves known. And now did I come to that place where much wailing assailed me. I came to a place where all light was mute, where it was howling like seas in a storm, wasted and whipped by tempestuous winds. That hellish hurricane, never resting, whips the spirits with its furious rush. Turning and striking, it torments each one. When they arrive in front of the ruin, there begins shrieking, mourning, deep lament. There they blaspheme, cursing the divine might. I understood then that to such torrents the sinners of the flesh were there condemned, those who subjected their reason to lust. And as the starlings come, borne by their wings in the cold season, to flocks large and full, so the wicked spirits are thrashed about by the tempest, here and there, up and down, never once comforted by any hope, not of rest, certainly not of less pain. And as the cranes go by, singing their lays, making themselves a long line in the sky, so I saw coming, bearing many woes, shades whisked by the unceasing whirling winds. About these I asked, "Master, who are these, berated and beaten by the black air?" "The first of those concerning which you wish to know some report," he then said to me, "was the empress of many languages. So broken by her vicious lechery, she legalized lust, condoning all vice, to take away the blame from what she did. She is Semiramis, of whom one reads she succeeded Nino and was his wife. She ruled the lands the Sultan now governs. The next is she who killed herself for love, forgetting the ashes of Sychaeus. beyond her Cleopatra the lustful. See Helen, for whose sake such long seasons of wickedness turned. See great Achilles, who fought to the final moment in love. See Paris, Tristan, and thousand more shades he showed me, naming and pointing to each, love having parted them all from our life. And hearing my teacher name the ancients, both the ladies and cavaliers alike, pity conquered me. I was almost lost. I began, Poet, I would willingly speak to those two who are tossed together, who seem so lightly borne by the whirlwind. He answered, You will see when they come near, then plead with them, for the sake of the love that thrashes them about, and they will come. As soon as the wind brought them close, I said, Oh, you troubled souls, come and speak with us, if another forbids you not to come. As morning doves called by desire, with wings lifted and steady, come across the air to their sweet nests, by their will delivered, so too these left that crowd where Dido was, and came to us across that evil air. Such power had my affectionate cry. O gracious and kind soul, visiting here across the dark, irredeemable air, to see us who darkened the world with blood, were the King of the universe a friend, surely we would pray to him for your peace, since you pity us in our perverse pain. That which pleases you to hear and to speak, we also wish to hear and speak to you, since, as it happens, the wind is silent. The city where I was born sits upon the shore of the sea, where the Po descends to find peace with all its tributaries. Love, catching fire in the most noble heart, gripped this one by that beautiful aspect ripped from me by what means offends me still. Love, who pardons no one loved for loving, so strongly gripped me with delight in him that, as you see, it has not let me go. Love drew us to one death. Cana, below, waits for the one that extinguished our lives. These were the words that she offered to us. When I understood those suffering souls, I bent my face to the ground, held it down, till the poet said, What are you thinking? When I answered, I said, Oh, misery, how many sweet thoughts, and how much desire delivered them to this wretched station. Then I turned again to them, and I said, beginning, Francesca, your martyrdom brings me, wretched and pious, to weeping. But tell me, at the time of those sweet sighs, how was it love made both of you aware that you should know the dubious desires? She answered me, There is no greater pain than to be reminded of happy times in misery, and this your teacher knows. But if you are filled with so much longing to know the earliest root of our love, I will recount as one who weeps and speaks. We were reading one day of Lancelot for delight, how love overpowered him. We were alone and without suspicion. But the reading kept bringing together our eyes and drained our faces of color. Just one moment conquered us completely. When we read that the longed-for laugh was kissed, and by so great a lover, this one, who will never be separated from me, kissed me on the mouth, trembling all over. Galeotto was the book. He wrote it. From that day onward, we read there no more. While the one spirit was speaking these things, the other was weeping, and I fainted for pity, as if I had passed away, and I fell just as a dead body falls. Okay, this is a great canto. It's a famous canto, famous story. Often, if there's one excerpt from the comedy that people know and have heard of, it's this story of Francesca and Paolo. So Francesca and Paolo were sister and brother-in-law. Francesca was married to Paolo's much older brother, and it was a marriage, a political marriage of convenience. And while the husband was away, the younger, dashing, handsome Paolo comes, and they begin reading about Lancelot and Guinevere. And they get to the point in the story where Lancelot kisses Guinevere, and then they stop reading. So they don't finish the story. That's the first problem. They don't actually finish the story to see what the consequences of their action was, their adultery was. Rather, they stop there and imitate that, and they have an affair. The husband comes home, finds them, and is understandably a little upset, and so kills them. And she says her husband is suffering in Cana below, which is the place in the 9th circle for those who are treacherous against their kin, the kinslayers, named after Cain. So he doesn't come up in the poem again, but he's said to be suffering down there because of his brother murder. But here they are in the 2nd circle, and they are eternally united. And it's a little ambiguous whether Paolo is happy with this arrangement. He is stuck with her, and he is weeping. Whether he's weeping because they never got to live a full life together, and that's what he's sorry about, or whether he's weeping because now he's stuck with this lady for eternity in this clasp. It's not quite certain. We're not quite sure exactly why he's weeping, but it could be both. So what is Dante doing here? I paused briefly, or I slowed down when I read earlier what Dante says here. He says, "I understood then that to such torments the sinners of the flesh were there condemned, those who subjected their reason to lust." I've mentioned this before, but when we get to Canto 11, we'll talk about the arrangement of hell. But this is upper hell, where they have submitted their reason, their intellect, to their lusts. It's now the stomach ruling the head. It's now their lusts, their passions that are ruling their intellect, meaning that they're not using their brains. They're not using their reason. They have become like beasts, and they have submitted themselves to bestial passions. We're going to see this play out in the next few cantos as well, with gluttony and avarice and even wrath. These are bestial passions that indicate that the God-given image-bearing faculty of intellect has been completely set to the side, right? They're not using their minds at all. They're not acting rationally. They're acting in a bestial way. And this is the first category of sin that Dante wants to deal with: sins of the passions, sins of the flesh. And so this is, as I said, when we get to 11, we'll see why this is at the top. But here we are, right? We're getting into the sins of commission. I mentioned in the last episode that the virtuous pagans are there as emblems of sins of omission, things that they fail to do. Here we start to get into the sins of commission, the things that they actively do. And so we see Dante. This is the most famous part of the story. Dante interacts with them, hears their story, and then faints with pity, right? He's so full of pity for them. And this is one of the things where I mentioned in an earlier video that Dante's something of an idiot. He's not an epic hero in the sense that he has it all together. He's wise and with it, and is accomplished and thoughtful and competent. No, he himself is overcome by emotion. And think about what this means. This is a lesson that he's going to have to learn here in hell. What does it mean to pity the damned, right? And to pity those in judgment. Now, it's one thing to pity those, our fellow sinners here in this life, for where there's life, there's hope. There's hope of repentance, and there's hope of turning from sin and living for Christ. But after judgment, right, after they have made their final decision to live in rebellion against God, after they've made that final decision to live apart from God and to live their own life, right, to embrace themselves as their own authorities, to pity them in their punishment is to, in some way, stand against God, to align yourself with the damned and say, this is not right. This punishment is too severe. This punishment is unjust, right? And so to pity, to have compassion for the damned in this moment, after they have already died and after they've already entered into their eternal punishment, to pity them, to have compassion for them, is to completely, two things. One, completely misunderstand what God is doing here and how the punishment actually fits the crime, and this is justice. But two, it's to call that justice misguided, right? It's to say, God, you've made a mistake here. That these are just a couple of lovers who were acting in love, right? And how can you blame them, right? So this is something that, again, Dante's going to have to learn how not to do. He's going to have to realize that part of his problem is he has been aligning himself with those who are aligned against God. And you can't be saved if you are aligning yourself with those who are aligned against God. If you are friends with the world, you become enemies with God. If you are friends of sinners, not in the way that Jesus was, in which he saved them out of their sin, but if you are friends with sinners in the sense of identifying yourself with their sin and embracing that, well, then you can expect to experience the same kind of consequence and judgment that they do. And so Dante is realizing that, or is going to be realizing over the next several cantos, by the end of Inferno, he gets this, that to pity them in this state is to reject God, is to condemn God, and that's just not okay. One last note. We're going to start seeing this over and over and over again. I mentioned this before, that the souls in hell will never take responsibility for their own sin, right? Part of what it means to be damned, part of what it means to be reduced to the essence of your own sin, which is what's happening here. Their humanity is lost, and the good of the intellect is gone, and they're being reduced to their worst actions. And so they will never repent. They will never acknowledge their own culpability. And so we see this in starting in line 100. 3 times Francesca says, love did this, love did this, love did this, right? And because we know Dante's own love poetry, when he says love here, or when Francesca says love here, when Dante the poet has Francesca say love here, it's not just love the feeling or love the emotion or love the action. This is God. This is God who is love, right? Love made me do this. The triune God who is love, that God made me do this. It's God's fault that I'm here. It's God's fault that I have, that I fell into this sin. It's God's fault that I'm being punished. I did nothing wrong. I was just following perfectly natural feelings. Well, perfectly natural feelings are sin apart from Christ. When those perfectly natural feelings have not been submitted to the law of God, when they have not been sacrificed and crucified on the cross, when they have not been raised to new life in Jesus and in obedience and living holiness, they are sin. And so to try and blame God, well, that's what sinners do ever since Adam in the garden. The woman you gave me, God, it's your fault. Well, Dante's going to have to learn how not to do that, because right now that's exactly what he's doing. It's God's fault they're here. And so he's full of compassion and pity. He faints and falls like a dead body. He wakes up in the next canto and keeps going and has some lessons to learn. So we'll see how he does that. Till then.